Good afternoon. I'm Jonathan Kay. I'm the president of SimsUshare, and today's webinar is going to be on how to conduct remote simulation training with SimsUshare CTC. I'm going to cover 4 basic points. First, what simple steps you can do to assemble your training processes and your materials. Second, how do you run SimsUshare in a remote environment? I'm going to demonstrate that. When I say remote environment, I mean where you have your instructor, your evaluators, and your participants all at different locations, but you all are online. Third, I'm going to show how you can handle your exercise communication. And then fourth, I'm going to show communication during an exercise debriefing. So the first step is obviously asking yourself, what topics are you going to teach? Now, they don't have to really be different at all from your existing classroom training exercise plans. Whether it's company level training, company officer development, we're going to go over a couple of ideas there. Obviously, with any kind of training, you want to identify your training objectives very clearly, and you want to use objective critiques after each scenario or exercise that you're running. Let's talk about a couple ideas. Some simple ideas in officer development. You could focus on practicing communication and decision skills around, let's say, initial operations. A lot of fertile stuff in there. From a company level training, maybe you can be very basic. Just do some walkthroughs, a slideshow for size ups, and basic review of responsibilities for the different crews on possible incidents. Now, for executive officers, you may take that to a higher level where you might be looking at SOPs, SOG, verification, and review. So I like initial operations because there's so much interesting things to practice there and really refine. And of course, it's the foundation of all good and bad operations. So whether it's the initial radio report, incident size up, strategic shifts, follow-up report, command transfers, you can really start almost anywhere. CAN reports, assigning units using the task location objectives. Anything that you might happen in the initial operations is a good area to do some exercises around your local buildings. Now, where you might start as well in terms of processes, we've put together, we call a simulation, using simulations to enhance training handbook. It's kind of a simulation training handbook, and I'm going to just show you what that looks like to give you some ideas about the types of trainings you might use, ideas of benefits, and even steps in how to actually implement that training. And I'll show you, for example, now as I go over to, if you go to SimsUshare.com and go to our help page, you're going to find a lot of useful information there. The purple button here says developing a sim training program, and that's what I would be clicking on to get to my handbook, of my simulation training handbook. So the focus of this, I'll sort of scroll down here and show you, divided in 2 basic sections. One is describing using simulation-based training in the fire service and typical trainings where it might fit. Second is about how you might start to develop your own simulation training plan. So in using simulation-based training in the fire service, we focus, it's not coincidentally, on the NIOSH 5 here, really saying here are 5 areas where the causes of line of duty deaths on the fire ground. And so a lot of these can be part of the lessons that you have in your discussions in what has made scenarios go bad, or how you're going to improve that in your own training. Lack of risk assessment, lack of incident command, fire ground accountability, and so on. Now, in that first section, we now delve into using simulations for company level training. You can see some ideas there. Using for officer development, and then later on promotionals, SOGs, continuing education. But I want to focus on here using simulations for officer development, because over here we've described a little example procedure around starting with occupancy status, a foundation obviously for everyone, and a kind of a little process here, even just using here single photos, where present a photo, officer identifies the occupancy status. So we kind of give you a step-by-step here you might want to try. Now, as you get into more of a scenario, you might start to look at, here's a process for a strategy identification selection. So you might be using a simulation there where now it's not just a simple single view, but a whole scenario in which people can even walk around as they identify the strategy, they select the strategy, and then as you get a little further in more involved scenarios, developing an instant action plan, doing initial reporting. So we definitely suggest checking out this free guide, giving us feedback as well. We want to make it helpful to people who are trying to put in place curriculum. They will need something to get up and running quickly. Maybe they have some of their own material. What's critical here, though, again, we talked about having training objectives and critique and having the specific in terms of critiques. If you go down into Appendix A, we have here example scoring sheets. I'll sort of zoom in to show you here. So these are things that you may print out and use as part of your evaluation during exercises. Again, you can also adjust them to your own department's use and your SOPs. So Appendix A has these example scoring sheets. You'll see both for a company officer, for then a battalion chief, including as well a Mayday section. And then in Appendix C is something that what we call a debrief master, and we say you can put it onto a whiteboard, print it out during each scenario. These are just the essential elements that are good in pretty much every structural firefighting that you can use in evaluating. As you go through them, you can kind of, as the evaluator, can check them off. These can also be the basis for your discussion in your debrief. You can say, how well did we do? Did we have RIT? How was our ventilation? How well was the command location? So this is a really useful kind of checklist in your debriefing, as well as then can be used by your crews to learn the processes. So definitely suggest checking out our handbook and giving us feedback. Let's get back into the presentation. So now, okay, you've got an idea of a process. You have a sort of idea of what you want to do. How are you going to put stuff together? This is where we have some free simulations, and we certainly suggest you go out, use your own pictures, maybe even some videos that you to review, but make simulations. Go and take a couple pictures or find some from your first do. Should be simple enough to create, whether single view or multi-view. But we also have about 25 free simulations on SimsUshare.com. I'm going to show you where that is. So if we go over to SimsUshare.com and I scroll down to the right hand side, you'll see here it says free simulations, and I click on free simulations, and now we have a one-page quick start guide of how you actually download the simulations. But here you can see we have starter sims, multi-position sims. So these are, we have about 6 to 8 in each category. And take a look at what these are, and you'll be able to see how to actually bring them and use them. And then you can also adapt them. So that should hopefully get you started. If you don't see what you'd like, certainly let us know. So let's now get back into this. Now this is a tip from Frank Lipsky, modern fire instructor. He was suggesting as well, since SimsUshare is kind of like a very basic PowerPoint, there's no reason that your slides have to just have smoke and fire. You could put information content, whether it's something to teach people or whether it's a reference guide, maybe an ERG page or something. You could take a snapshot. Let's say you create it in Keynote or in PowerPoint, export that slide as a JPEG, and then just stick it into your simulation. So you can use SimsUshare to sequence your slides just like PowerPoint, and you could, whether or not that information is presented inside of an exercise, that just becomes another location or a slide, and you could just drop people into that location if you want to bring them into that information slide. Or if it's before the exercise, then you can just use it as a regular presentation. So good tip there. So now the main thrust of our presentation, how do you actually run SimsUshare remotely? So you've got two roles here. One is the instructor, or you can also be an evaluator. Both of them basically, well, the instructor starts at ctc.simsushare.com. You just need your CTC credentials, and you just need an any internet browser except for Internet Explorer. So Microsoft Edge, Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, Safari, Opera, anything like that, and you can run exercises from anywhere. Your participants, we highly recommend installing the free SimsUshare app on Windows or Mac, or running it on iOS or Android. But we also now just introduced recently a internet browser version for participants, and I'm going to show you. So basically for each of these, you go to the CTC login, which will just take you to ctcsimsushare.com. If you're a participant, we strongly suggest the SimsUshare app. That's going to give you the best experience. But this browser is something that's really simple for a participant, makes it easy so you don't have any installs. So if you go to that ctc.simsushare.com, you can go here to be an instructor, and that's the instructor login is on the left. If you want to use the browser version of a participant, you would click on the right hand side, participant login. You don't need credentials for that. Now, we talked about having an instructor. You can actually log in on multiple screens. So let's say you have an instructor, you have an evaluator, other people who want to see kind of a bird's eye view, who are coordinating the exercises, not part of them. So each of those people can log in again on this ctc.simsushare.com as instructors, and they'll get that high level view, and they don't have to be in the same location. Also, what's critical, for each of the packages, we have a certain number of participants. So let's say a package like the starter package has 3 concurrent participants. Your instructors and your evaluators are not included in that count. So you can have multiple instructors or instructors or evaluators, and as many as you'd like for that. Now, as a participant, as the SimsUshare app is what we recommend, and so that can be that's available on various platforms. So now, when you get into SimsUshare CTC, and I'm going to show you just in a moment, you have a couple of different options here, like simulations. That shows you the simulations that you've uploaded to your cloud account, or you've brought in from our example scenarios. Exercises is going to be where you're running your multi-company exercises. Web client is going to be a participant view if you want to have that also running on the computer that you're instructing. So I'm going to show you now. So use basically simulations if you want to preview what you have in your account, and use exercises if you want to actually run that as the remote control. Let's take a look at this. So if I go over now here to my I'm going to go here to ctc.simsushare.com. I'm going to log in as this instructor, and here's our CTC dashboard. And so as I said, if I want to just look at the simulations, I can click here and I can go and just double click on whichever one I look at. I get a pop-up window. This is not remote control. This is all just me looking. And you might want to give your crew, say, oh, just take a look at 1024 Stockton. And this is the way you can practice. So they're not connected to anyone. No one's controlling them. No one's seeing what they're doing. And you can do that toggle full screen. That's kind of the self-study simulations. But now let's go over to exercises and start an exercise. To start a multi-company exercise, first have your crews in their wherever respective locations. If they actually have SimsUshare, have them open up SimsUshare. And what you'll do here is I'll create an exercise, and I'll give it a name. I'll say like 123 Main Street. And now the code is something that you're going to use each exercise. It's a one-time use. And so I might say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but that's a little bit basic. There may be other SimsUshare customers are running who might be using that. So make it a little bit distinctive. You don't want people dropping in on your exercises unannounced. So I made it here main ST. Now what you do is you choose the simulation you want to use to run in your exercise, and you hit create. Now at this point, people can actually come in. If I actually go over here, as we'll see, I can go here. Now if I'm running an exercise, now I have my code main ST. So now you tell your people, I'm going to go here. I'm pretending I'm a participant. I go to the menu. I say start multiplayer mode. I now say join CTC server, hit connect. And now I say exercise code is going to be main ST, and I'm going to be battalion 1. I hit join. And if the scenario is already downloaded, it won't give you this. It'll just, if it's downloaded, it'll give you this. It's saying, do I want to re-download it or keep it? If the scenario is not downloaded, then it will automatically download it. I'm just going to keep the scenario for now here. And notice what happened. When I'm in here, my instructor now is seeing that battalion 1's ready. So I can now go here as well. If I want to go ahead and start the scenario, I can just hit start. And notice what's happening right now. These are my slides, my locations A, B, C, D. If I now go over, let me go over to battalion 1. And now if I hit left, you'll see on the instructor, you're seeing how the instructor is moving around. I'm sorry, how battalion 1's moving around, but the instructor is seeing how that unit. Now, if I have other units coming in, let's say I'm going to go now and have engine 1 join. You might have them start before you actually start the exercise, or maybe you have a responding slide or a staging slide so they're not immediately on scene. Whatever you want to do in your simulations. I hit CTC server here. I'm going to say my unit name is going to be engine 1. I hit join, and now again I don't need to re-download it. I could if I wanted. For the sake of time, I won't. Now you see I have engine 1 and battalion 1. Of course, these can be any number of slides that you have, any number of locations, including our new SimsUshare states mechanism, which makes it super simple to change conditions. But for right now, showing simplicity, you see how engine 1 is moving around. They can move around independently. And if I now, let me actually bring this over so we can do this at one time. I'm going to go and so here, let's see. There's that. I'm going to go, that's okay. So you see now I can actually be, if I move engine 1 over somewhere, I can individually control them. Now for people who haven't seen the CTC before, very useful feature. We have here a transcript of everything. So that's really nice, showing people where people went. You could copy that out for a record. Then you also have here on the left hand side is a little preview window which is mirrored in the corner, so I can actually go, as the instructor or evaluator, I can just see what the actual views are, or I can actually track different units. On the right hand side view down here is just my own little viewer, so no one else is seeing that. Another really useful feature here is the ability to communicate. I might say for the instructor, on scene 10 minutes or so, and then when I hit OK, you'll see they get all that, everyone gets that message. So, and I can also selectively send messages to the different units. So this gives you a really basic rundown of the CTC. Let me show you what it looks like with the web client. If I go web client, meaning the browser version, you're going to open up, and this is what you do if you would go to simsushare.com and go to participant. Again, what I'm going to do here is put my name, I'll say ladder 2, and my exercise code, same code for everyone, main ST, I hit create. And now you'll see in a moment, this is a browser version of it, and there's ladder 2. So what you might encourage, you'll see on the browser version, we have a full screen option there. And as I move around, so I'm seeing the same scenario, and I'm participating in it just like as I were with the SimsUshare app. And I can just similarly, if I were over here, the controller can move that person around. So a lot of stuff here in the CTC. On our help pages, we have a lot of material about it. Hopefully it's giving you a little snapshot of how you might run an exercise. Now, this is just run from the visual perspective. Let's get back to talk about how you might handle remote communication. So in the CTC, I showed you the basic text messaging to participants. That's obvious, how you might text message, report that you found a victim, telling whatever it is, telling whichever unit, interior, maybe not everyone. Now, obviously for radio communication, use your portable radios on a training channel. That's simple. That will handle during the exercise, and you can certainly go and switch channels, if that's part of your SOPs based on how the situation evolves. Some departments have some teleconferencing capabilities already. That can be useful if everyone is not in radio communication or they don't have their radios. And then, of course, just like what we're using right now, Zoom for video conferencing. You can use Zoom, Google Hangouts, Skype, GoToMeeting, WebEx, a whole variety of tools that can provide the voice conferencing, or just using some conference call, a conference bridge. You might use some of the video conferencing tools to simulate face-to-face communication. So if you have video cameras on your computers, you might do face-to-face communication and use your video conferencing tool to handle that aspect. So now a lot of these, obviously, this kind of rolls into conducting the exercise debriefing. The mechanics you can handle easily, again, with Zoom, Google Hangouts. You can have that running just like I'm running now, Zoom and the CTC. It's not either or. So you can have Zoom, Google Hangouts, Skype, WebEx. Now if you're on an iPad or an Android, I can't guarantee, but maybe then you're on a conference call, or you're using your portable radio and you switch over to the video conferencing tool once the exercise is over. You can then also, what's useful about Zoom is you can share the instructor a participant screen. So during your debriefing, you can say, let's take a look at this. You can send the units to all the various locations, but you can also show, you could share, let's say you show the dashboard, you show where all the units are positioning and start asking questions. So this Zoom meeting or the Google Hangouts or the screen sharing essentially just gives you a huge new capability in your debriefing to show the dynamics both from what the user sees and then also kind of globally bird's eye view what everyone is seeing. And for more than 6 to 8 people, again, we suggest muting microphones. Sometimes background noises get in the way. So you can handle that. That's going to be just something you learn as you start doing more video conferencing and these types of remote sessions. Again, the point that's always worth emphasizing is when you're doing any kind of training, you need to clearly identify your training objectives and use objective critiques after each scenario. So we provided a couple examples for you. We hope that they're helpful. Kind of to wrap up, here are a couple of the resources we want to emphasize. First, the SimsUshare help page. There's a lot of good stuff there about how to develop your training program, and then mechanically how do you operate SimsUshare. We have videos, we have free classes, we have quick start guides, very useful for operating the CTC, for creating Sims, a lot of stuff there. We have free simulation sets, more than 2 dozen and growing. Please use those. Let us know what you'd like to see. And of course, the last thing, most important, is contact us. We're available by phone. We easily set up web meetings if you want to discuss your specific situation. We want to help you. We want to learn about what's going to be most effective for you. Well, thank you very much for your attention. I'm going to give a couple more minutes to ask questions, but right now I am going to pause the video.